Peace. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about that major earthquake that hit the East Coast, a 4.8 magnitude earthquake that hit the cities of New York, Boston, Philly, and other areas on the East Coast. We'll talk about the latest with that. Also, let's talk about President Biden proposing for a funding cut for charter schools. How does that impact Black and brown students? We'll have that discussion later on. We've seen that based on a new survey that money, the inflation, is the top concern for Black women voters. It's not abortion. It's not, school issues, but it comes down to money. We'll talk a little bit about that. And later on, Sean Diddy Combs, his son, has been called out for in a new lawsuit saying that he should be found guilty of sexual assault as well. What is going on? Can we have a different conversation about how the sins of the father could potentially be passed on to the children and how we could stop and break that vicious cycle? Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, folks, as we have these discussions. And happy Friday. We are at the official end of the week, so happy Friday, folks. And the first, the first few days of April is already ended. I can't even believe that's happening. But yes, folks, it is Friday, April the 5th, and we thank you so much for tuning in. And also know that we are streaming live on a number of different platforms. Let's start with our home platform, our Black Star Network. Check us out on our website at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And, of course, we ask you that you just be a donor, an investor, a stakeholder in this movement we are embarked upon. So make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. And we truly thank you for your support. Now, we're also streaming on Amazon News, on your Fire TV. Make sure you check us out there on Amazon Prime Video, folks. You can find us there. Just find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, The News. We're also on the Freevee Network, where you can find us on now for news for the Freevee Network on Black Star Network. And we're on Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're on Plex TV. So just check us out there, search for Black Star Network, or find us on the Live TV, The News and Opinion. We're also streaming on Big Brother Roland Martin's social media pages. Let me get that word out. His social media pages. Check us out on his Facebook page as we're streaming there, as well as on his YouTube channel. And it is on those two spaces that you find the illustrious Culture Crew. So big shout out to the Culture Crew that's checking in from all around the country. Truly, truly appreciate y'all, as always, for being with us and riding with us, and more importantly, being a part of the conversation. And we're also streaming on the X platform. So big shout out to the X platform as well, to all of the crew members there too. All right, let me go to our very, very special contributor. She joins me on Fridays. Always happy to have her. My sister, Kimberly Morrow, who is an educator. She's a parent advocate. She serves as the founder and principal of the Doris L. Morrow Online Academy. And she always joins us here on The Culture on Fridays. Kim, good afternoon. How you feeling?
Good afternoon. I'm feeling good. It's a little cold out here, but I'm feeling good.
It's cold in LA.
Yeah, it's a little chilly.
It's a little chilly, but I see you rocking some colors. I gotta give space and a place for that.
So I'm giving AKA today, Alpha Kappa Alpha. I got my pearls. I got my pink and green sweater. Yes.
You got Converses on?
I do have my Converse on. Yes. I have my black and white Converse on. I sure do.
That's what's up right there. That's what's up. All right, look. Let's kick it off here. Let's start a little bit. First and foremost, Kim, I'm not sure if you have family or friends on the East Coast, but if you do have family and friends on the East Coast, make sure you reach out to them, give them a call, check to see how they're doing. That major earthquake, 4.8 magnitude earthquake, hit the East Coast earlier today, and it affected cities such as New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, and folks are in some of the areas along the lines. Here's some of the images from that earthquake, folks. Here's this one. Take a look at this one, Kim. I do not know. Well, let's go back to that one about the Statue of Liberty. Take this out the frame, because I saw this and I was like, is this a sign? Is this a sign? Look at that, y'all. The Statue of Liberty, a bolt of lightning hit the Statue of Liberty just like that as the American flag is flying. And you can just see that. I mean, it is compelling, a compelling photo. And I don't know, Kim, me and my social scientist brain, I'm thinking like, is this a sign of something? What does this mean, God? What is this? What is this? But I thought it was a compelling picture, so I wanted us to see that. But that is a major situation that happened on the East Coast as of right now. And we got to take our first pause. But as of right now, it doesn't look like there has been any major damage or any casualties to this earthquake. But there's still a lot of concern about how this situation will play out. Look, we're going to take our first break, Kim. I want to give you a chance to comment on it. Folks, stay with us. We're just getting started here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next-generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Game on. State of the Union 2024. Huge night for President Joe Biden.
This was a CVS receipts type of night.
He dragged the hell out of the Supreme Court. And he said, y'all gonna see the power of women.
Trump's brain is melting as we speak.
We want to organize from a place of strength.
There's no confusion whatsoever about what they've done and what they plan to do.
What Donald Trump is doing is presenting a fallacy.
He is convincing them that he's all in it for them, when in fact he's all in it for himself.
We do not feel Joe Biden, in spite of the success that have taken place during this administration economically. There are too many things where we do not feel like he's had our back.
You should also be investing in the barbershops and the beauty salons and the hookah bars and the folks who are going to the club, and there's a way to actually get them registered because we've done it before. But if you don't have folks who understand that dynamic, then you're missing a big opportunity.
So we said we just celebrated. For what? Why don't you go to celebrate rather than recommit yourself to the fight if the very thing we went to celebrate has been gutted?
Republicans did not support a lot of the bills that were necessary to keep the country fluid. You can't only love your country when you win, right?
Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
This was absolutely the knockdown, drag out that we were really waiting to see.
Black voters are the base. They're the most important base of the Democratic Party. There was very few language in this speech. At the time, we see an attack on Black history, attack on DEI. The end of the BLM racial reckoning thing has come to a complete end because there was nothing in this speech for that.
Our movement has never been grounded in two-party politics in this country. All of our movements ultimately get co-opted by a state that is anti-Black.
They called the old because they knew the way, and they called the young because they were strong. And I believe there is a good combination of that, but we can have ideas and we can have visions and dreams, but we have to have our young people also working beside us because they are strong, and they will run that race, and they will run it to the end.
Activists, organizers, and young people have been pushing this administration to to be on the right side of history and to do something about the issues that they care about.
While the Ukraine and Palestine are critical issues, they are not the only global issues.
Not a single black person who should ever let it come out their mouth that I'm tired. Because there is somebody else who came before us who didn't stop fighting.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Kimberly Morrow, and talking a little bit about that big earthquake that hit the East Coast earlier today. 4.8 magnitude, Kim, on this earthquake. And I want to show let's show some of these images out there because folks are checking and look at it. Take a look at this, man. The damage done. This looks like some images from New York City. They say that the earthquake was felt, especially in New York, New Jersey area. One of my producers just said her family felt it in Connecticut. And Gene Smith, I see you. You say, I live in Pennsylvania. The earthquake woke me up. My bed and windows were rattling and shaking. I asked the same question. Is this the end? Woo. Whoa, and coming from the East Coast, imagining feeling a 4.8 magnitude earthquake is not something that's fun. So, Gene, I can only imagine what you felt like at that particular moment. P. Jackson, you asking, are buildings on the East Coast required to retrofit for earthquake? Probably not. Right, Kim? Like, probably not.
I doubt it. Very doubtful. Right.
This is not like out here in California where, that type of engineering is mandated. Here in the East Coast, I mean, look how tall the buildings are in New York City.
Yeah.
Before the towers were taken down, before that happened, I mean, that was like a landscape. That was a part of the New York City line landscape. And so, no, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case with Pete Jackson. That's a great question, but man, what's your take on what we saw in this whole situation?
So, first of all, I don't really have to text my family because guess what? They watch this show. So, family, I hope that you are okay in New York. I do have a lot of family in New York, Farajii. And interestingly enough, many of them have moved back to New York from Los Angeles. So, while they may have been jarred by this, it didn't faze them because they actually lived here in Los Angeles. This is actually happening. We're seeing this happening a lot more often around the country, where places that have not experienced earthquakes are beginning to experience them. And I know in the next segment, we're going to talk about the torrential rains that are happening in New York as well. A lot of that, I know people are saying we're getting to the end, it's almost the end, but a lot of it is due to climate change, which is something that we have control over. We are as humans, not you and I personally,
right.
But as human beings, we are causing a lot of the problems that are occurring with the different weather pattern changes, with the different locations for earthquakes. Now, a lot of this is man-made. So my take on it is we really need to be more concerned about the environment and climate change and really pay attention. I know a lot of time, and okay, I'm going to speak for my circle, not all Black people, but I know a lot of time as Black people, we don't kind of buy into that whole thing and we think it's other people's problems. But we are responsible for this planet as well. And I think we have to be more aware of what we're doing to cause a lot of this. So
absolutely.
That's my 2 cents.
No, and you know what? That's some great change that you gave us, because the reality is, like, I remember reading an article years ago saying that by so many countries drilling into the certain parts of the not just in the ground, I'm talking about in the ocean. You know, when you're talking about the issue of fracking and all of those things, like what the oil companies doing and all of that stuff, it starts to irritate or disrupt the fault lines. Of course, in the state of California, we're right on the fault line. But it's when you said man-made, that's what came. That was the first thing that popped into my head, Kimberly. It's like sometimes, you know, Mother Nature, she's like, look, let me be, let me do me. And the next thing you know, man, we just, oh no, we need to build more. We need to extract more resources from the earth. So that is that's a hell of a way of looking at this situation, because climate change is very, very real.
Yes.
And even though the legislature may not want to admit it, that there are huge, I mean, look, when is the summer? When is the winter? When is spring happening in this country, right? Like, I remember living on the East Coast, you would see a delineation between each season. Now, you come out to LA, it's 50 degrees. You go to New York, you go to Boston, you go to Philly, it's 80.
Exactly.
And it's, you know what I'm saying?
And seriously, Farajii, think about it. You know, at one point we didn't really allow drilling in certain parts, but because the high price of oil and gas prices have gone up, they are doing a lot more drilling in Alaska now. So think about it. New York is near that area. So with all of this drilling, whether it's undersea or wherever the drilling is taking place, that is impacting our environment. And of course, people want to, oh, it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world, because then it absolves us of our responsibility, because we have no control over when the end of the world is coming. And it's been prophesied and we can't fix that. But the reality is there are a lot of things that are in our control with regards to this climate that we can fix. We can work on those things.
Right. Absolutely. ABX girl, you check it in. Good to connect with you, sis. Once again, you said the driving tunnels are closed, but subways are running, schools are open. I remember the earthquakes of 1983 and 2011. And she's talking about what's happening in New York City today. Pastor Damon Blissett, thank you so much, ABX girl. Damon, you said, Farajii, there was an earthquake here in Kansas City 2 weeks ago. Wow. Cindy D, you said the same thing. You said we feel earthquakes in the Midwest now because of fracking. Wow. Yes. Lori Parks, you said what you just mentioned about the weather, it's all mentioned in the Bible, won't be able to tell the seasons. I'm telling you, you just won't be able to do it. You just won't be able to do it. And we're looking at a very, very serious time. The one thing that we can know for sure is that once you have some natural disaster, and it will be interesting to see what that lightning bolt, I guess I'll show that image one more time before we take our next pause. Let's just show that lightning bolt. What do you think this means? Like, this is, because nature, this is heavy to me, y'all. I maybe I'm making too big of a deal about it, but it's like it's a sign. Is this a sign of something? You know, and I'm not trying to get into no conspiracy theory type of, you know, tunnel or jump down into that rabbit hole, Kim, but you can't just say, oh, the weather is just like this because it's just this. No. With all, I truly believe, just like we talk about the energy, the personal energy that each of one of us, we always talking about that personal atmosphere that we should have and stuff. When we talking about energy within ourselves, that's one thing. What do you think, Mother Nature, how do you think the earth is going to respond if the energy of the people of the earth is one where we're just greedy and we're not taking care of Mother Nature. We're not preserving the natural resources. We're just raping the land and doing and just pillaging and just doing all manners of ill will to the soil and to the air and to the water and all of these things. Maybe I'm not trying to be crazy here, Kim, but
no, Farajii, remember during the pandemic when everyone was on lockdown?
Right.
Remember how the animals roamed free, the lakes started to become clean. Mother Nature was happy that we humans were not destroying the planet as we had been doing,
Oh yeah.
because we saw so many things transpire with the planet. Things started to reset a little bit. So yes, the damage that we are doing on a regular basis, and like you said before, in the name of greed, a lot of times it's in the name of greed.
Yeah.
We are doing so much damage, and yes, Mother Nature is furious. I agree with you on that. I
I
agree.
think
And
so. I think so.
we saw it firsthand during the pandemic. We saw how things started to change
Yeah.
environmentally during the
Yep.
pandemic.
Absolutely. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears a little bit, folks. Let's talk about from Mother Nature and natural resources to talking about education. As President Biden has moved forward in proposing a cut to charter school funding, what does that mean for Black and Brown school students and parents? We're going to check in with our sister Kimberly to get her take on this as well. And I would love to hear what you got to say. So post your comments, share your thoughts and your questions. Put it into the chat, and let's get into the discussion about charter school funding being cut. Stay with us. That discussion is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
I need you to scream for your new beginning. 5, 4, 3, 2. I need you to shout for it. I need you to shout for it. It won't always be like this. Sooner or later, it's gonna work in your brother's favor, in your sister's favor. They shall not die. They shall not die. They shall not die. I want you to embrace somebody and tell them welcome to the greatest season of your life. Hug somebody, welcome.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, joined by my sister, Kimberly Morrow, who is an educator, parent advocate, and founder and principal of the Dorsell Morrow Online Academy. And I think this is something that's going to be near and dear to your heart, Kimberly, talking about this latest discussion coming, this latest proposal coming from President Biden, where he's trying to propose for a funding cut for charter schools. And this came up, the president talked about this from his State of the Union speech. But then, I think it's just starting to kind of get some chats or get some conversation started. There was a piece that was written by Miss Debbie Vinny. She wrote this piece for the Griot. She's a senior vice president at the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. I'm sure you heard of her. And she put out an op-ed saying, Mr. President, if you force me to choose, you will lose. Her opinion is that the Biden administration's proposal to cut funding to the charter schools program will leave parents little choice come November, saying that more likely parents will choose a politician who has a better policy or educational policy more so than their own political affiliation. So if more people will, and it is based back, this is backed up by data, that regardless if you're a Republican or Democrat or whatever your political affiliation is, if you see a candidate has a stronger educational program and platform, you're more likely to vote for that person rather than a person who may not have a stronger platform and they may be of a different party or your party. And it's a very, very interesting mix. But here's what Miss Vinny put out there, and I want to throw this out there. Let's put the first quote up, please. Thank you. She said, just a couple of days later, talking about President Biden, after he made that great State of the Union speech, he proposed a budget called for cutting investment in charter schools, which predominantly serve Black and brown students. She asked the question, how exactly are we supposed to get to this laudable goal by slashing the only source of federal funding for the startup, growth, replication, and expansion of these public schools that serve our students as well? There is never a cost to attend a charter school, and according to research from Stanford, the average charter student gains an equivalent of 16 additional learning days in reading in a year and 6 additional days of learning in math. It's hard to interpret a proposed cut to the charter schools program as anything other than harmful to our children. Kimberly, what's your take on that? Do you agree or disagree with Ms. Vinny on this view? Look, you had to take a breath.
Because you know what, I can already feel. I already feel the heat and the backlash I'm gonna get when I. So, charter schools. I can see why there's this issue. There's been this back and forth over the past 20 years with regards to charter schools and public schools. Because the reality is charter schools do pull funding away from public schools. Initially, when charter schools came about, they were fantastic. It was a group of parents and teachers and community members that founded a charter school to support the students in that area. Okay. But what has happened with charter schools probably within the last 10 years or so, a lot of these have become big business. Corporations have taken over this whole movement or has leaned into this movement. So it's not just these small charter schools that are receiving this federal funding. These are corporations that are getting this federal money, and those are dollars that are being taken away from our public school, which still serves the majority of Black and brown and low income students. Because with
so wait a minute, let me make sure I understand this before we take our next pause. You're saying that charter schools diverting resources from public schools, and that is more harmful because public schools serve more Black and brown students.
Well, you know what? I don't want to just say things to make people like me. Yes, it is harmful, Farajii. It is because not every child can go to a charter school.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, seriously, because they are moving more and more charter schools into these socioeconomically disadvantaged areas. That is true, but a lot of times with charter schools, you have to provide your own transportation to school. And so a lot of parents are not necessarily able to do that. And think about it this way. I have been in both areas. Right. I spent the majority of my professional career in public schools. And so I know firsthand how the dollars they're taking money from public schools. They are, because it's only so much in that pot to go around. So schools get their money from, it's called ADA, average daily attendance, and it's based on the number of students you have. So if the number of students we had was 2,000, but now it's reduced down to 1,500 because 500 of those students are now in charter schools, we don't still get funding for 2,000 students. Now we're only getting funding for 1,500 students, but we still need to provide these students with every possible resource to make sure that they are reading at grade level. And so again, my issue is we're having a lot of corporations who are going into the charter school business who are making a lot of money, and that money is federal funded dollars or state dollars that's getting diverted to these charter schools. So
well, okay.
You could tell having done my professional career in public schools, having attended public school, K through 12, that's a little source. It's a sore
spot for you. It's a sore spot for you. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation with Kimberly. I would love to hear what y'all got to say, crew, on this, as the president is proposing a cut to charter schools, but then you have groups like the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools who are advocating that, look, Mr. President, don't do this because our children, Black and brown children, need charter schools. What's your take on a conversation? Join us in a discussion. Join us in the chat as we're streaming live on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page and on his YouTube channel. I would love to hear what you got to say. And of course, stay tuned. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
I have something I want to tell you. I am running for president.
Of the United States? Holy.
I'm paving the road for a lot of other people looking like me to get elected.
Brooklyn's first Black representative.
You're about to make history.
You want to be president? You ain't no man.
Maybe we should find your mother. All you got is your one vote.
You sound just like every other politician.
Do I look like every other politician?
Freedom!
Truly, you can't win.
And why can't I win? I have an opportunity to make a difference.
Creation!
This isn't a campaign. It's a joke. The only thing anybody's gonna remember is that there were a bunch of Black folks who made fools of themselves.
See too much suffering. And I don't know how to not try.
We're living it proud.
I don't think I'm special. I just want to remind people what's possible.
We need something that's going to make some noise.
The Black Panthers and Shirley Chisholm. It's like thunder and lightning. I'm going to force all the politicians to be held accountable.
You're gonna do all that. School teacher from Brooklyn.
Harriet was just a slave. Rosa was just a domestic. What is it you do for a living again? The people of America are watching us.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black
own media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in, being a part of the conversation. Joined by my sister Kimberly Morrow, who is an educator, parent advocate, and serves as the founder and the principal of the Dorsel Morrow Online Academy, talking about charter schools as the president is moving forward. His administration is moving forward on some budget cuts for charter schools. And you have advocates like the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools who are saying, Mr. President, don't do this, because not only is this bad for our children, it may be bad for our vote, for getting parents, Black parents, to vote. And you're saying, Kimberly, you're actually on the other side. You understand why the president would kind of make a decision like this, even though we know that there are some charter schools that really do the work of educating our children. But behind these charter schools are the big corporations. Behind these charter schools, some big corporations. And more importantly, that if you start to put more money into charter schools that only a few students can get access to, and not put it into public schools where we have a larger majority of Black and brown students then we're still going to do more harm than good to the children. Talk to me about that.
Right. And okay, let me put it to you this way. Farajii, if you and I and several other parents and teachers founded a charter school and we needed resources to help us fund it, that would be reasonable. We actually would need resources from the state, from the federal government to help us fund our school. Should we be penalized? No, we're doing great work. We're seeing great test scores. But now Elon Musk, Tesla, he creates a charter school. Did he get those same federal dollars at the risk of now a public school is not going to get those federal dollars? So that's where my issue comes in. I'm not anti-charter school, but I think when charter schools first started, they started with the noblest of intentions. It was parents, teachers, community stakeholders who founded these charter schools to ensure that the students that were in those school districts the schools were not performing, they founded those charter schools to help those students. And then you had corporations who saw, oh, there's money to be made. And I've literally heard people say this. You can make money. You should have did a charter school. You can make money doing that. Really? That's what you're doing this for? No, literally, this is what people told me. You should do a charter school because you can make money off that. That's how these businesses are making money. So that's where my issue comes in. I do feel as though the students that are still in your traditional public school setting, they're the ones who are missing out. And I'm not going to say what school, but I was at a particular charter school in Los Angeles, and I was on the campus for the entire school day. And in my mind, I thought this charter school is pulling away money from public schools when these students were very similar to the community day school students that I taught over 10 years ago when I was a teacher in Moreno Valley. They weren't being held accountable. So when we see charter schools, we're thinking the students are receiving this phenomenal academic education. There are consequences. There is some high expectations. And I saw none of that. And that was one of those corporate funded charter schools. So that's where my issue lies. It's not that I'm not lumping all charter schools. There are numerous charter schools that do great work, but I have seen that when they become, they have these corporations behind them, And I don't really see where the students are always being held accountable, and they are benefiting from this. Because while I was there, I was like, these kids are community day school kids. There is no reason why this school should be pulling money from the public school system when these kids could be sitting in a community day school. And I would have had them not walking around campus yelling four-letter words, curse words.
Right.
While
Let
security
me
is
just do this.
standing there engaging with them, talking to
Right.
them like they're friends. I have
Right.
an issue with that.
Let me do this. Let's take another quick pause. When we come back, because I want to get your take, Kimberly, and I want to, we'll give some more time to this on the other side, but I want to get your take about school ops and school choice. How does this play out when Black parents, Black students are yearning for some sort of school choice? I want to get your take on that. And then as well, we'll also bring in my sister, Corinna Denise, who's joining us as well. Get her take, and let's continue to get your take, because a lot of you crew members, y'all are saying, yes, no, and then some of you are saying, nah, we need to spread the love. We'll continue to have the conversation on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Terry and I, we couldn't play in the white clubs in Minnesota. It felt like such a, strength through adversity type moment that I think Black people just have to go through. We have to figure it out.
Right.
We make lemons out of lemonade. But there's a reason we rented a ballroom, did our own show, promoted it, got like 1,500 people to come out. Clubs were sitting empty. They were like, where's everybody at? And I said, they're down watching the band you wouldn't hire. So it taught us not only that we had the talent of musicians, but we also had have the talent of entrepreneurship. It wasn't like a seat at the table. It's like, no, let's build the table.
That's right.
We got to build the table. And,
that's right.
And that was the thing. And of course, after that, we got all kinds of offers.
Of course.
Right, to come play in the clubs. But we didn't do it. We said,
no, we good.
No, we're good. We're good. And that's what put us on a path of national. And of course, when Prince made it, then it was like, okay, we see it can be done.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Oh, man, we are in the midst of a great discussion talking about charter school funding, public school funding, where should the money go, and more importantly, how it will impact both Black and brown students who are in both spaces. And so we've been having this conversation with our sister, Kimberly Morrow, who serves as who's a parent advocate. She's an educator. She's been an administrator for many years. She even found her own school, the Doris L. Morrow Online Academy, and she's given us her take on this. But this conversation comes up as a result of an op-ed that was put out by Miss Debbie Vinny, who serves as the, just pulling it up here, Senior Vice President at the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. as she has advocated and is advocating for President Biden to not cut charter school funding, saying that it will essentially harm the children. And there's the piece that she wrote. And not only will it harm the children, that it may be detrimental to his base come November. But we'll get to that later. But I want to get your take on this because Ms. Vinny put it in her op-ed, Kimberly, that she said that a lot of this, that charter schools offer some sense of options, school choice for Black parents in particular, for Black students in particular. And I want to kind of get your take on this as we look at this situation. How does this play out for school choice? You said earlier the funding should go to public schools, okay. But then what about school choice? What about when parents are sick and tired of being in the public schools and they're looking for an alternative? How does this whole situation bode for that?
Okay, I didn't say it should only go to public schools. I don't have a problem with it going to charter schools, and I do believe in school choice. I just think the government needs to be a little bit more discerning before they just make it a blanket. We're going to give it to all charter schools at the same rate or at the same level. There should be some delineation, some distinction. Again, if you and I founded a charter school, absolutely, we need that funding. If Elon Musk, under the banner of Tesla, founds a charter school, he doesn't need the same support that we need. So I just think that the government just needs to be a little bit more, it shouldn't just be anybody who has a charter school can access these funds. So, because it does shortchange public school students. It does. There's only one pot that they're pulling this money from. They're not multiple pots. And so if I'm in a position, if I'm a corporation and I can do a lot more to support my charter school, then I will do that. But unfortunately, you get these corporations who are in it to make more money. It becomes
more of a business model.
It's a business. Right. That's where my issue lies. So I don't want to get anything twisted that I have a problem with parents not having choice, that I have a problem I want to take away from the charter schools. I just have a problem with these charter schools that are run by these corporations. They are and they are using the government as just another funding source that they don't need.
Moet 131, you said, I agree with Kimberly on that. Sean Ryan, you said she does have a good point about the pot of money. Yep. Tiana, you said charter schools are being housed in schools that have been closed. So we're seeing that as well. So they got a money issue, you have a placement issue, infrastructure issue, but more importantly, you have trying to figure out where charter schools sit in the larger landscape for education. I want to do this. I want to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to get one more voice in. Let's bring Corinna in to get her take on this as we talk about this and see how how this thing could go forward. And is this a sticking point for President Biden and Black parents? Is this something that Black parents should be questioning President Biden on? Or is this just a political scuffle that leads to nothing? Look, we're going to continue the conversation on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Friday. Folks, we had a dynamic first half of the show where we talked a little bit about that massive earthquake that took place earlier today affecting the East Coast. We talked a little bit about that. Now we are in the conversation about charter school funding, as there's been some talks about the president's latest proposal to cut funding from charter schools and how some advocacy groups are saying, no, Mr. President, if you do that, you're harming black children, but you're also going to be harming a portion of your voting base that want to see you, that may want to see you move forward in a second term come November. So we're having that conversation right now. Look, folks, join us right now. We're streaming live on the Brother Roland Martin's social media pages on Facebook, as well as on his YouTube channel. But we're also streaming on a number of other platforms, on your Amazon platform. So you can check us out on Amazon News, on your Fire TV. We're also streaming on Amazon Prime Video, where you can find us there. So just check us out on the Prime Video app, and you can see us there. We're also on the Freevee network, as well as on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we appreciate you all for joining us. Now, speaking of joining us, let me bring another voice, a sister who is doing some great work in the area of college admission advising, as well as in politics. My sister Corinna Denise, one of our great culture crew members, that she joins us for this conversation. And I knew this was going to happen. That we talk about this, and I say, I bet she's going to spill over where Corinna can be able to jump in. And I'm going to allow that to happen because, Corinna, you've been in education as well. And I would love to hear your take on this as Miss Debbie Vinny from the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools put out this op-ed advocating for more for the president not to make these cuts. But where do you stand on this, Corinna? Do you think this is a good idea to cut charter school funding, or do we need to have a different conversation about empowering public schools and changing that infrastructure?
Hey, y'all. Happy Friday, first of all.
Happy Friday.
Hey. Yeah, it's so ironic, Farajii, because I've actually worked in charter school, but as a college counselor and advisor at the high school level. But what I will say is, I'm a little ambivalent right now. I still, I'm always that person that needs more information. But something that does stand out to me right now is I'm just thinking, why now? So I'm about to get political, like we are in an election year. And something that really stood out for me in the article, I just want to reference it quickly. The author said particularly, my home state of Florida can serve as a cautionary tale for President Biden. In 2018, Andrew Gillum ignored the wishes of Black voters and came out against school choice options that met the needs of underserved communities throughout the state. Gillum received around 40,000 fewer votes among Blacks than fellow Democrat Bill Nelson received in his Senate race that same election day. Now we know we got a lot of questions and things that happened with that 2018 election, but my point is, it's kind of like, why now? We are in an election year. Is this something that we can just table for the time being? Not that it's not important. We definitely should be having conversations. One of our culture crew members, forgive me, your name evades me right now, but she made a great point before we came back from break, saying that, a lot of charter schools are in buildings of schools that previously closed. So I could see there are some eyes on that, like, well, hey, there was a school that was already here and now a charter is in its place. Kimberly mentioned how a lot of these charters are more like ran like businesses, like corporations. You don't typically see the head of a charter being a superintendent per se, like you see with our public schools. They're usually like the chief officer or some title of that nature. So yeah, I'm ambivalent because I take issue with just cuts to education in general, because that always seems to be the go-to. And especially, and I know Kimberly can attest to this, being a teacher, being a principal, when you really care about the work as an educator, you definitely dip into your own pockets, to provide your kids with materials or just an activity that they won't be able to experience otherwise, because you just decide to choose peace over battling an administration, and them, defending the budget for the year. So yeah, I just take issue in general with cutting education. There's so many other things that we can cut down on. Why is this the go-to? But I just don't see this being a smart move, considering we are in an election year and considering what's at stake, and how folks are going to receive this. There are other things that need our focus and our attention right now. So I don't know if necessarily education, much less charter. I don't know if, the intent is to set aside charter to try and distinguish, well, we're not cutting public education in general, just the charter schools, but them, why are they the focus right now with this education cut?
So you're saying, Corinna, that this should not be the issue that Black voters, or particularly Black women voters, should sacrifice themselves for.
No, that's not what she said.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's definitely not what I'm saying.
That's not what you're saying. I'm listening.
That Biden should not be bringing this up at this time. We're
I get that part.
Election year, and she thinks that he should have tabled this for now. That's what she was saying. Am I quoting you right?
That is correct. That is exactly what I'm saying, is that it's not that the conversation definitely deserves attention and discussion, but I'm raising the question, why now, considering we are in an election year? There are always all kinds of feelings when it comes to education, particularly, and we always hear about the cuts. We got to think back to even before Biden Harris came into office, in the height of a pandemic, schools having to temporarily close and kids being at home. We're seeing the effects of that now with those young people, how it affected them not being able to socialize, constantly among peers. So it's kind of like, what is the benefit to cutting the charter? And can we, perhaps make the cut somewhere else? I don't even know if we need to make cuts at all, because, as everyone knows, we always have the funds to do other things accordingly. There are other things that definitely could be cut that they don't cut. So I'm just raising awareness right now. I'm looking at this as, why is education always our go-to, whether it's a charter, whether it's public school, to make these cuts? And I just don't think this is a good look for us right now in an election year. But yes, education is definitely something important. And unfortunately, Farajii, to your point, there are some sacrifices, unfortunately, that we're going to have to make, and then circle back around and be like, okay, now that we done pulled the reins, we need this to be done. So
I hear you. Shauna Marsh, you said Biden does not need to do anything that will diminish the achievements of his administration. He needs to leave this alone right now. Wow.
Exactly. Yes.
Tiz, you said there should never be cuts to school education, period. If you want an educated workforce, why would you cut? Schools need to be better suited for this technological environment. Okay, I agree. I definitely agree. But Tia Tia, you say in California, charter schools get less money per child than traditional schools. This discourages us from teaching in charters because the payment is sometimes much lower. And Tia, you're talking about how you are a public school teacher who has taught at both types of public schools. Caring, Afrocentric schools with high standards are so needed, but some of the best charter schools only welcome superstar Blacks.
That part.
Is that part, Kimberly?
That part.
I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to address that. Go ahead, talk to me. Why is that important?
No. Not only do they because it makes their test scores look good. And it's all and that is very important. They want their data to look good. And I'll tell you something else about charter schools. Because I would get students who came from charter schools. And a lot of times with charter schools, they didn't even go through that whole expulsion process. It would just be like, okay, you're no longer a fit for our school, so you have to go. So there are a lot of, I take issue with some of the way they do things with charter schools. They don't have the same accountability measures that in public school we have had to adhere to. Okay. And I just want to remind all of our listeners that Betsy DeVos, do you all remember that name?
Oh, of course. How you gonna forget that?
Yes, and she was a big.
She wasn't even a teacher.
No,
but
she had to do with charter schools. So, charter schools for a lot of people. So when Corinna said some of them are run like a business, no, some of them are run by businesses. They are run by a business, not like a business, by a business. Betsy DeVos was very engaged with charter schools. And so when that's my issue with not all of them, with some of them. And so I believe that maybe if President Biden would have said charter schools would need to show their need, otherwise their funding could be cut. Because I'm telling you, corporations went into the charter school business to make money because it is a money maker.
Only in America, where a child learning it becomes an avenue to make money. Damn. Only in a capitalistic system called America. Folks, look.
Thank you for clarifying that, Kimberly.
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
Like a business, but by
It is a business. It is a business. We gotta have to table this like many of you are suggesting the president do. We'll table this and let's take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about Black women, as some of the some new data has shown that Black women are more concerned about their money than they are about abortion and reproductive rights. Really? We'll talk a little bit about that on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney and be cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sisters who join me every Friday. My sister, Corinna Denise, who is one of our great culture crew members. She's also a college admissions advisor and Politico, and we enjoy having her take on these issues. And then also joining me is my other sister, Kimberly Morrow, who is a parent advocate, an educator, and who serves as the founder and administrator for the Doris L. Morrow Online Academy. All right, sisters, let's switch gears a little bit. As we talked about charter schools being important for some Black women, there's a new study that shows that even though Black women have always been the quote unquote the backbone of democracy, and more importantly, has been engaged in politics for every cycle, the big concern for women, for Black women in this election cycle is money, the economy. And according to this, take a look at this. This is per a new report called Higher Heights. And this is an organization that's dedicated to advancing Black women's political power. They found that Black women voters are focused on addressing housing, inflation, and the cost of living this election cycle. And let me share with y'all what the CEO of Higher Heights had to say around this Glenda Carr. She said, quote, "These critical issues impact Black women's everyday lives. Black women want economically thriving, education-rich, healthy, and safe communities. Our poll shows that cost, not the economy, drives Black women's issue priority. This is in our face every day when we go to the grocery store, put gas in our tanks, and pay our rent and mortgages." She said these issues should be the focus of Congress, our elected leaders, and candidates vying for our votes this November. Corinna, I'm going to start with you on this. Do you agree or disagree with Ms. Carr and with this assessment that money is the top concern for Black women voters right now?
I'm ambivalent again. I mean, well, let me just preface this and say that I'm always concerned about money. Okay, I always want more of it.
Because you always about getting that bag, right?
You know, like, I just want to be paid my worth. You know, I'm sure we all, you know, as we're moving up, you want to be compensated accordingly, right? And of course, we've both seen that costs have gone up tremendously. I just became a homeowner maybe about 6 months ago. I'm like, yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you. But let's give some context here. So, I got a note. So Higher Heights released the poll findings in conjunction with Hit Strategies at a media briefing on, at a National Press Club. And the poll surveyed 852 Black women voters and was conducted online February 14th through the 22nd. So I'm just raising that point to say I think we should know the number of women that were involved. Now, that doesn't negate the findings whatsoever. That's not what I'm saying. And I think it's an important conversation. I think the data is helpful to become more aware of some of the top concerns, but that still is just a small margin out of all of the Black women in the country, right? But to think that this might be more important than abortion rights, and it's unfortunate that we kind of have to put these, I don't think we really want to have to rank these in any particular order. All of them essentially are extremely important. And yes, money is always important, cost of living, our survival. You want to be thriving. You don't want to just be living check to check. You want to be able to pay your bills. And we've seen how costs have gone up. But I will push back a little bit, Farajii, and say, and it could be too, maybe I'm a little biased because of where I live. And we know what just happened in Florida this week with our Supreme Court here. I'm extremely concerned about women's reproductive health care, because our quality of life depends on it. And I'm not negating the importance of money now, but I think abortion rights is an extreme concern. I know, at least for me, and a lot of Black women that I know personally.
Let me get your take on this, Kimberly, before we take our next pause. Do you think that money is the top concern over abortion rights and gun safety? Is this an accurate assessment of where Black women are?
I have to agree with Coretta. I did not think so when I was reading it. I was like, I feel like that's a little short-sighted. I mean, here's the thing with money in the economy. Everything ebbs and flows. At some points, we're going through a recession. At some points, we're having great highs in our economy. So I think to simply narrow everything, boil everything down to now the gas is high. So my vote is going to go to the person who's going to lower that cost. I think that's very short-sighted and narrow-minded because, safety is a huge concern. I am particular about having so many guns where people are coming into our schools and shooting up our schools. That's a particular concern for me. Yeah. And as well as other things, our reproductive rights, especially when you have, I believe it was Arkansas, it was either Arkansas or Mississippi, where now IVF is at issue. People are concerned that if they freeze their embryos, that can be seen as violating some type of law. So I don't agree with that article at all.
This is very interesting. Because I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing, sisters. Maybe it's a generational thing, right? Where some younger Black women are saying, look, I'm trying to get that bag. I'm trying to own my own home before I'm 30. I'm trying to get into a good financial position before I'm 35 or 40. Maybe it's more generational than anything. And I got to take another quick pause, but let's explore that a little bit more. And because I do believe, folks, and crew, y'all tell me if I'm wrong or right on this, but I do believe that there are some generational differences that exist in all of these issues when it comes down to either money, when it comes down to women's reproductive rights, when it comes down to gun safety. There's a lot of generational differences, and I think we need to explore that. Look, we're going to do so on the other side. Join us in the chat as we're having these conversations. I would love to hear what you got to say. And of course, stay tuned. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
A real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be
black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sisters, Corinna, Denise, and Kimberly Morrow, as we talk about a new survey coming from Higher Heights, an organization that's dedicated to Black women, political empowerment, and engagement. They did a new report. They put out a new report saying that money is the top concern for Black women voters over abortion rights and gun safety. And Corinna, you talked about the sample number. It was only about 800 Black women that were sampled for this report, and so that's a small number. And let me just go to tell you, folks, a lot of times when data and surveys are done, it's always small. I mean, very few times you say, "Oh, I did a survey with 1.3 million people." It's always like, 6,800 people here, 5,000 people here. I don't think I've seen any more than like 10,000. I've never seen a survey that has a sample size of like 250,000 people. But it is a small number, but it's indicative of where Black women stand according to Higher Heights. It's like they're looking at this and saying, look, a lot of women are more concerned about inflation, housing, cost of living, not necessarily where the job market is or whether we have a strong economy for the month, but they're talking about quality of life things like the cost of food, how much it's going to cost to put gas in the tank, those type of things. And I think that is some concern. And here's the thing, I think this is really important, that trust me, I'm a man, so please don't bring the fire, because I got my hazmat suit on, Corinna and Kimberly. But I do think that some women feel defeated because of the reversal of like Roe v. Wade and just the ongoing conversation about women's rights and women's reproductive rights and abortion rights and all of those things. Like, we've been talking about abortion for at least 50 years in this country. We've been talking about women's rights for 50 years in this country. And I think some Black women are like, look, they're going to continue to talk about this. I got to think about me. I can't think about all of these other women, or I can't think about this issue. Like, if you're a woman that has children already, you are out of that space of thinking about not having children or of aborting or anything like that. I just don't think some sisters are concerned about that, and it's important.
Not out of that space. You're not out of that space necessarily, right? Because you're going to have other family, friends that you care about. And the thing is right now, particularly, and I care about gun rights too, Kimberly. Well, not gun rights, but the fact that our children are being murdered and slaughtered in our schools. That is a huge issue for me as well. But as far as abortion, I think on its face, a lot of folks just perceive that as, oh, okay, abortion, you want to end the pregnancy, you got pregnant, you just don't want to carry the child to term. Yeah, that's one thing. Another big one that I was lining up the chat about earlier this week was ectopic pregnancy. I know folks who have experienced that. That's when that is not viable. It's the egg gets stuck in the fallopian tube. It doesn't dispense into the uterus. The baby can't grow. If the fallopian tube bursts, it can kill you and cause internal bleeding. So that woman in that situation, Farajii, there is no time, even if she has the means, to travel to a state that might be able to provide abortion care, right? Because what is abortion? To terminate a pregnancy. So she could die. Florida, just recently, we're about to implement our 6-week abortion ban May 1st. Let's be very clear. That's pretty much a complete ban. And that's something that they want to take to a national level. So when we discuss quality of life, right? Groceries, being able to do things with our family and our vacation, how are we going to enjoy quality of life if we might not even have a life?
Right.
So these are the things.
But I don't know. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Is that, Kimberly, a generational thing, right? Like when you're in your 20s and 30s, and trust and believe, I'm not saying this to throw shade on any sister, but when you're in your 20s or 30s, you're not thinking about the whole all the time. You're thinking about the me, the I, the you, right? Once you get older, and this is the same thing for men, once you get older and you realize the fragility of life, then you start thinking about, man, I need to make some different choices. I need to extend this thing because I'm starting to get to a point where I'm gonna have less years in front of me and more years behind me.
Maybe that's
right.
why
So you start thinking about some different things. So Kimberly, what's your take? Is this a generational thing, not necessarily a political thing?
Honestly, I don't think it's either one. I think it's a socioeconomic thing. And I really would be very interested in knowing those who were surveyed, what is their socioeconomic demographic? Because when I hear things that I'm more concerned about the cost of gas, the cost of groceries, it really makes me wonder who was surveyed. You follow me?
Yeah, I got you.
Who was surveyed? Are these people that are near?
Wait, let me ask you this though, Kimberly. When you hear that is more about the cost of gas and the cost of living, is that an indicator of age? What is that? What is that an indicator for you?
I think it's an indicator of where they are at in their socioeconomic level. Because regardless of age, if you are experiencing some, I don't want to say poverty, but you're sort of, at or near that poverty line, for example, with our seniors who are on that fixed income, well, that's where their focus is going to be. Right now, people who may not be making high income levels, that's where their focus is going to be. You follow me? It's kind of wherever your focus is. So if my focus is constantly on making ends meet, I don't have time to be all philosophical thinking about all of these other things that are as important. But I am thinking about, I've got to put gas in my car to go to work. I've got to go get groceries to feed my family. I have to pay this month's rent. So my mind is completely consumed with the economics of it. That's why when I read it, I was wondering, did they only ask the people that are at or near the same economic level? I'm very curious about that. I really don't think that is a generational thing because, again, you could be elderly, you could be midlife, you could be millennial, but if you're experiencing economic hardship, that's where your focus is.
No, and it speaks, I mean, if we already know that there is a number of data out there that shows that most of the households in the Black community are women-led households, single mothers, right? So we know that. So if I'm a single mom and I got 2 kids or 3 children, I am thinking about stuff like that. I'm thinking about daycare costs. I'm thinking about gas costs. I'm thinking about food costs. I'm thinking about, you know what I'm saying? I am thinking about that. So, and that's not necessarily because I'm young, but to your point, Kimberly, I'm just making this to your point. Yes, it is a socio-economic thing. Now, very quickly, before we take our next pause, I saw something that I thought was really, really important. And I think who I saw it first, Brian Christian. Brian said, interesting. I think this isn't about the money. Instead of it's about a Black woman's worth. What do you make of that very quickly, sisters? Is this about a Black woman's worth? Because there's been so much conversation, especially when you're talking about the relationship dating space. What does a woman bring to the table? And there has been a lot of emphasis over individual worth, whether you're talking about Black men bringing something to the table or worth something, or you're talking about Black women. Is this a part of that? And I think that's a great point Brian brings up. Thank you, Brian, for posting that. What's your take on that very quick, Corinna?
Oh, Brian. Wow. A Black woman. I just gotta.
Cause y'all sisters, come on, Corinna. I know you got some. I know you got some homegirls be like, girl, I make $80,000. I make $100,000, girl. Please.
No, let's be very clear. Our worth is always a hot topic of conversation because we're never given our worth. We gotta fight for it, battle for it. So that's always something that's gonna be discussed. Always, Brian. But yeah, it could be. But I think Kimberly really unpacked this thing a little bit more, specifically wanting to know, okay, what's the socioeconomic status? Because a lot of times we see these polls and we're just like, okay, well, who are you surveying? What are their lives like, to kind of give us some insight as to why, the results are what they were. But yeah, when it comes to our worth, yes. But here's the thing, and I'm gonna just end with this because I know we got to go to break. The other side ain't gonna give us none of that. We ain't gonna get socioeconomic status, the inflation.
Well, you said, wait a minute, who's the other side though, Corinna?
The opposition, them damn Republicans. That's what
the Republicans. Okay, I just didn't want to make you say like it's black men. I thought this was a black woman, black men type of situation.
Yeah,
I was like, wait a minute, hold on, let me check it.
I know all of these topics are important. Like I said, I struggle with having to rank them in general because everything needs to be addressed. Let's just make that very, very clear. Our quality of life in totality needs to be better. But what I am saying is that in general, on the other side, even though we're talking about this, let's make that very clear. We're not going to get any of those things. So that's what I'm speaking to. But go ahead on, Kimberly, and tell us about the black community.
Well, let's do this. Let's take another quick pause when we come back. Let's have more conversation about this and get more of your comments as we talk about this latest report about black women and their top concern going into November. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sisters, Corinna Denise and Kimberly Morrow. And we're just continuing to talk about this latest report from Higher Heights that says that money is the top concern for black women voters. Now, this is a small sample of about 800 black women that were surveyed for this report, but they're saying that this is still a top concern, even over abortion rights and gun safety, that it comes down to inflation, housing, cost of living issues, and not necessarily some of these big national issues. And one of our crew members, Brian Christian, posted that it's interesting. He thinks that it isn't about the money, instead of it's about being a black woman's worth. And so, Kimberly, I want to give you a chance to kind of speak on that. Do you see that being the case with this particular data?
You know, when he first said it, I took it a particular way. So I'm just going to speak on the way that I received what he said. Okay, because
talk about that receipt.
I think Corinna, I think she had a different take on it, but this is the way I received it: that black women are worth way more than we are ever getting credit for or being compensated for. So when we are struggling, it makes us feel some type of way. I know when I am having financial difficulties, I feel somewhat less than, because I know I'm worth so much more. And a lot of times as people, not just black women, but our worth becomes tied up in our bank account.
Come on.
And
Come on.
It does. Our work becomes tight. So if we are having those challenges where we're at the grocery store and we're having to pinch pennies and we have to put back certain things because we can't afford it, it does take a hit. Our worth, our value takes a hit. So when I heard him say that, I thought, that it is about our worth, because right now, with the economy being the way it is, it can play havoc on your mental, because you start to feel like if I can't afford gas or I can't afford groceries, then it's diminishing my self-worth. And
wow,
that's the way I took it. So I don't know
And I
how
agree.
he intended it, but
Yeah.
that's the way I received it.
And I think Brian, I think to his point, I think that's the point he's trying to bring it up, that we as a culture in a system of capitalism, we do tie value, the value of somebody to their bank account. And I call it money watching. Like, I remember seeing one of these like gossip sites, and they was like, oh, the top black billionaires. I'm like, damn, man, like, when do we stop money watching? Remember back in the day when somebody asked you how much you got paid and how you took offense to that? Like, you couldn't even ask your parents. You couldn't even say enough. You couldn't clock you couldn't clock nobody's money. You can't be watching their pockets, man. But now the culture is so in a different place, that we're so money driven that our intrinsic self-worth is tied up to our bank account. So if you're rich, that means you're more valuable. If you don't have quite as much, that means that you're worthy of being spit on and punished. And we see this day in and day out. And this gets into black women's minds and black men's minds. And, this leads us to our other comment that I wanted to talk about, because this was something that we still see each and every day, that there's this ongoing discussion. I'm trying to pull up the whoever made this comment. I saw this brother. He posted it, making a point that it's always about black women and black men, and it's never about how do we bring us together. Even in the simple survey, it can highlight the things that black women are doing, black women are achieving, but it doesn't speak to the fact that we are trying to build the community, the family, the household together. And I think the only pushback, and I agree with the comment, that is often this black men, black women narrative that's often placed upon these discussions. But in politics, categorization is a big part of it. That's how people know, because a candidate has to figure out, okay, my platform should appeal to black women in what way? It should appeal to black men in this way. It should appeal to this group of people. But that's just the nature of our politics too, that we categorize, that we divide and whatnot. Yeah. The thing is that we as the voters, we as constituents, we as the citizens of this country must advocate. That's one way to look at it, but we're a community, and we need to have some different conversations about the unity of us instead of the division of us.
Yeah, I would agree. And I saw that comment too. I would agree. I think we're not having enough of the conversations of the unity of everyone, right? You're always seeing these categories, what black men want, what black women want. And then in turn, it kind of causes like a friction and division between us. It would be one thing if we're saying what black men need, what black men want, what black women need, what black women want, and what black people need in totality together as a people, despite the fact that we're not monolithic. But I don't think we're having enough of those conversations. And essentially, we need each other to survive,
absolutely,
to thrive, right? And to be successful. And it's just, it's like too much separation. And right now, more now than ever, we need to be together. We can't have all of this, constant separation of conversation. I would raise questions to say, how would it be for us to talk more in depth about how black women can support black men, how black men can support black women, so that we can come together and have that unity? Because I think those conversations are happening, but they're few and far in between. Farajii, Kimberly, what do you think? Like, I don't think
Kimberly
discussing enough.
No, I agree. They are few and far between, and it's so exhausting when you're on social media and there are posts that are made that are meant to be divisive and explosive and meant to cause friction between black men and women. And I get I've gotten to the point where I'll look, I'll scroll past, I will not engage anymore because what is the goal of your post? Are you trying to bring unity or are you trying to cause friction? So I am so over it because at the end of the day, I don't know about all of your viewers, but at the end of the day, I see the Black family as the cornerstone of our success as Black people.
Absolutely,
we need
absolutely.
each other.
Absolutely. We need each other. I mean, just across the board. And I'm like you, Kimberly. When I get into these conversations, like I can't listen to none of these damn podcast people because y'all be giving out some toxic ass information, man. Y'all are ruining people's relationships, man.
Right?
Man, a man needs to have at least 30,000 in his bank account before he go on a date. You'd be like, oh my God, bro. Like, where are you getting this stuff from? Like, our parents didn't even have this much money. Our grandparents didn't have this much. I know people are gonna be like, it's a different time, though. It's a different time. It's not a different time when at the end of the day, if you want to be with somebody, you will step up, you will make it work. It's just that simple. You know what I'm saying? And we put all of these, actually, this stuff is not, some of this stuff in understanding things, especially between men and women and all, it's not rocket science. We making it seems like it's just so far ahead of us, like, oh my gosh, like I don't understand. Take time to learn, to listen, to get into the self-work, but more importantly, listening to the other side of to get a better understanding. But something I can't even, Kimberly, I can't. I listen to them, I scroll past, and then I start trolling them. I'll be like, this is dumb. This is dumb. Be like, oh, you never. I say stuff like this, Kimberly, like, you never been married, never had a child.
Something that came to mind real quick, if I may,
real quick,
just to circle back. We were talking about the importance of, what's important to Black women. Is it the economics, accessibility in terms of cost, or is it the abortion? Like I said, I don't like to rank these things, but something that I think is very telling to where women stand. In my home state of Florida, for example, we know what happened in 2022. That was one of the first pieces of legislation that was signed, the 15-week ban. Then almost a year later, the 6-week ban went into signed, but it was kind of like backed up in court. And then finally, the Supreme Court in Florida this week said, yes, the measure can go ahead. Well, people were here on the ground organizing. It usually takes approximately 800,000 registered voters to sign a petition for you to get a measure on the ballot. They got over 1 million signatures, way more than they needed, right? So we will be able to vote in November. And I'm telling everyone who lives in Florida, vote, oh, hell yes, to Amendment 4, that you want this ban overturned, right? So I'm just speaking to, even though we're moving silently and quietly and we're not screaming it off the rooftop, every chance we get, there are women here who care about abortion. Now, I don't know the numbers specifically of Black women.
And you should.
Right? But I just want to highlight the numbers that, and that gives me a sense of hope that people are paying attention to what's happening.
You should. I'm not saying, and I think that you should. The thing is, and I want to take a quick pause after this, but you should, just simply because what may not affect you may affect your sister. It may affect your niece. It's going to affect some woman in your family. And so for you to be, okay, you may not be in that space. You may not need to be the recipient of that law, but the fact that somebody else does. Because I'm sure that in every circle of Black women or every circle of women, somebody has considered abortion, somebody has considered pregnancy, somebody has considered something that the law dictates on women, imposes on women on how they should make choices for themselves and their body. So it's important. You just got to have those right conversations. Look, when we come forward, I want to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about this latest lawsuit against Diddy and his son, Justin Combs, who's been identified as being a sexual predator in a new lawsuit. Folks, we got to have this continued conversation. It's sexual awareness, Sexual Assault Awareness Month here in for the month of April. Stay with us. We're going to have a quick discussion about that here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. This month is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And we're going to continue to have conversations about sexual assault and all of its dynamics here on the show. And so I wanted to bring at this point up to my sisters Corinna Denise and Kimberly Morrow this new lawsuit that has named Diddy's son, Kristen Combs, in this lawsuit that was filed yesterday by a woman named Grace Omakai, who alleges that the son, rapper Kristen Combs, 26 years old, sexually assaulted her in late December of 2022, according to filings from the LA County Superior Court. And it looks like Grace was working as a steward on a yacht that was chartered by the Combs family where the incident happened. We already know that Diddy is under investigation for his alleged involvement in a sexual trafficking lawsuit, and that now this puts a spotlight on the sons. Kimberly, I want to get you start you off on this. My only thing about this is that this thing continues to kind of spiral, and there's so many links to all of this. But I think it's important, especially now during Sexual Awareness Assault Month, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, that we have some very different conversations with our boys about sexual health and wellness, right? I recently saw, I think it was NBC News that put this out there, but they're saying that Black men and Black fathers and Latino fathers wait too late to have these conversations about whether their sons are sexually active or not. And so I want to kind of get your take on this, Kimberly, about just the fact that, of course, this is a lawsuit. It's all allegations right now. He hasn't been arrested, speaking of Kristen Combs, but it just speaks volumes about the sins of the father being passed on to the son and how we can break that cycle. Talk to me.
Okay, so I'm so glad that I finally get a chance to mention my book on air. So, because this is actually in line with what I talked about in my book. So my book is 8 Pearls of Wisdom, a Parenting Guide. Empowering Children is the way to go. And one thing I say in my book, and I've said at different events where I've talked to parents, is children they learn from what we do, not what we tell them. So I can appreciate, the fact that the polls or the data says that Black and Latino men need to have conversations with their sons earlier. They also need to be demonstrating for their sons how to treat a woman. So they demonstrate this by showing them in their relationships with their child's mother or with their wife. A lot of times we may tell Diddy or any other father can tell their children the right things. This is what you need to do. This is what you should not do. But if they are not demonstrating that behavior, that child is not listening to what they are saying. They are watching what they are doing. And so
Absolutely.
If in fact, we're going on the presumption that these allegations are correct. If in fact these allegations are correct, and at some point the son was exposed to his father's behavior, his father doesn't have to tell him to do it or tell him not to do it. He's seen it. He is going to do it. Children do what we do, not what we say.
That's real. That's real. 26 years old, Corinna, and he's named in a lawsuit for sexual assault. This is the other son. I remember Justin Combs being named in a previous lawsuit that Diddy's former producer Lil Rod put out there saying that Justin was involved in some other incident. So you possibly have two sons, and this is the whole thing about the whole Diddy situation. He has two grown sons that are wrapped up in this whole foolishness, is all this madness, right? Again, these are all allegations. Nothing has been proven yet. They haven't been arrested. But the point is, we're not having the proper conversation. We're having more conversations about Diddy being bisexual than we are having about Diddy passing on certain, as Kimberly's saying, certain traits, showing their sons that this is quote unquote what manhood looks like. This is what masculinity looks like. We're not having enough conversations that you may have a real problem if Justin and Christian have been exposed and now they become perpetrators, how you're continuing the cycle of abuse and violence when it comes to men and women. Where does it stop? Where do we need to intervene at, Corinna? What's your take?
Yeah, I resonate with everything that Kimberly just said. Children are going to do as they see. Sometimes we even see these little kids online, their parents got them dressed up looking like very adult-like, saying adult-like things, and they think that it's cute, and it's really not. And what's happening now with Diddy and now his sons, allegedly, it's just so unfortunate, Farajii. And yeah, if it turns out to be the truth, then we could say it is indicative of how Diddy moved, right? And they're just, seeing how their father moved about in the world, and in turn, maybe this is a result, so not only is it affecting him, it's affecting his children. But someone who comes to mind right now are those twin girls. I wonder, how is this affecting them as young women? They lost their mother a few years ago. And, it's these men who are in their lives who they have to look up to. I mean, I would imagine they have other, strong women in their lives to mentor them. But, to consider the effects with first your father, now your brother too, that is probably so much weight, and they're teenagers.
Right.
So I think in turn that's going to affect them too. How are men or young men or gentlemen going to treat them as young ladies, young women in the world? So it's just like a domino effect on this behavior. But I agree with you, Farajii. We're not having enough of the conversations that need to be had. More of the focus is on Diddy's sexuality or other things that he has done. But, how is this going to reverberate as far as his children and other young men, other young people who look up to him, right, as a role model? What behaviors, what else is going to be revealed? It's just so unfortunate that
very unfortunate. Go ahead, Kimberly. We got like 30 seconds or less.
I just wanted to reemphasize what Corinna said. The daughters these are the type of men that they are going to attract because they've seen this in their lives. And so for them, it's normal. And a lot of times fathers I don't even think that they realize that, because they'll tell their daughters, this is the kind of guy you need to get. But then the daughter sees what the father is doing, and guess what? She's going to get a guy like her father.
That's crazy.
So I wanted to re-emphasize.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And folks, let me just say, we're going to continue to talk about it, because I don't think we're having enough conversations about this. But like I said, NBC News, they put out this report. They talked about this, and I'm looking at it right now, where they're saying, based upon a new study, that show that Latino and Black fathers often underestimate when their teenage sons become sexually active, resulting in delayed education about safe sex practices. And I can group that in both of what y'all said, not just talking about condom use, you're talking about how to see a woman through the correct lens, not to just over sexualize or hyper sexualize a woman, how to have those conversations. But you got to pay attention. As men, we got to pay attention to our sons, because we think, oh, well, it's just me. But you can't go around and you hang, you know, you with your son and you calling women the B word and you talking about F's and all that stuff. And then you expect your son to have a proper respect to of women, a proper view of women. And I'm going back to what you say, Kimberly. They watch what we do. They don't listen to what we say. There it is. There it is. All right, Kimberly, thank you so much, Kimberly Morrow. Make sure y'all follow her on all social media. She's done a fantastic job. She is an educator, parent, advocate, and serves as the founder of the Dorsal Morrow Online Academy. My sister, thank you so much. And I got my sister, Corinna Denise. Make sure y'all follow her on social media, RenRen84. She's doing some fantastic work as well. So, Corinna, thank you so much.
And
thank y'all for being so good.
Real quick, because we didn't get to touch on it last week, but I dare say that Cowboy Carter is Beyonce's best body of work.
All right, see, don't be starting no other stuff. I'm gonna get you off the air. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for checking in.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
All right. All right, folks, let's go and do it for us. Thank y'all for being a part of the conversation. Big shout out to the Online Culture crew, all of the new voices, the new folks in the chat. Thank you so much. Make sure y'all stick around for Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you follow me on social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram and at Farajii on X. And I would love to connect with you. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk to you on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.